Hello everyone, Happy New Year's, and welcome to a very happy writer's rant, brought to you by Camille's Harem. Not just a podcast by novice writers for novice writers, but also a YouTube channel by novice writers for novice writers. Because writing is an adventure, it's more fun with friends. Normally my rants are either born out of aggravation or a desire to turn something that annoys me into something that's at least a little bit humorous. But to kick off the new Roaring Twenties correctly, I want to do something that is happy and positive. So I'm giving The Dragon Prince an overdue review, and I'll be ranting happily about how amazing this show is. So let me get this already out of the way. Spoilers ahead. You are watching at your own risk. And if you have seen it already, strap yourselves in, because this is going to be fun. The Dragon Prince Season 3 was amazing! Truly awesome. And if you have any doubts, just check out the numbers. It was in the top 10 most binge shows of last month. It has a 100% on Rotten Tomatoes and high scores on more reputable sites, let's be honest here. And it gets 5 golden stars from Lars. Oh yeah, because even novice writers' opinions hold real value. This is a show that I've enjoyed since Season 1, and I've defended it to everyone that I talk to, saying that if they just gave the animation a pass, they would adore the story. And now that everything has been tweaked in that particular department, it has delivered a 9-episode run, clocking in at half the running time of Game of Thrones Season 8, and has yet even greater payoff and sensibility than the HBO juggernaut. And justice for the dragons too! Booyah! This is how you do it, people. Take a note, Benioff and Weiss. I'll admit, I set out writing this particular script for this rant originally to write about elves in fantasy, but I halted after seeing the 3rd season. Originally, I was just going to praise the Dragon Prince in my old script for how it goes into fun and unique directions with its elves and being diverse and all that, but the 3rd season, oh my gosh, there's just so much more to say than just the elves. But I will start with the Zadian world building. The magic, the eastern half of the continent is just incredible. It was so great to see fantasy taken into big, both metaphorical and literal directions. I loved all of the new creatures that were being brought in, and how there are just these vast differences in landscapes, and the completely different cultures and magic systems that we got to see. And the elves were an important part to all of that. I just really liked the bold direction to completely change the look of the elves themselves by giving them 4 fingers, horns, different magics, and different skin tones. They really do not look like most elves I've seen before in fantasy. My bold claim here is that Dragon Prince's elves are the real successors to Tolkien's own rendition of the fantasy race. You see, Tolkien wrote about all different kinds of things in his stories, including politics, hobbies, different cultures, and a wide spectrum of personalities and even ethnicities all went into his telling of Middle-earth. How we got stuck then on this idea of stoic, depressed, xenophobic white elves for the next 5 decades is really beyond me. Until The Dragon Prince, the only shift I ever saw in portraying elves was when I played D&D. However, the Zadian elves feel vibrant, alive, and even relatable. The Sun Elves and their metropolis was incredible. The Moonshadow Elves with their Scottish accents and honor-bound lifestyle was beautiful and presented a truly heartbreaking moment for Rayla. And these places weren't just salad dressing, but they held key plot moments for characters like Rayla, Viren, Amaya, and Callum. And the characters of the elves themselves were just phenomenal. We saw the Elven nerd, the Elven general, the Elven adoptive father, the opportunistic rogue elf, the cowardly wizard elf, the brave Elven guards, and let us not forget the wonderfully devious and manipulative Erebos. Yes, I got the name right this time! This was a great step forward in the story because it set up the nuance that the show needs moving forward, and as we learn more about Zadia's past. It is not so simple as humans bad and elves good, especially when we see conceited, evil, and selfish elves mixed in with the honorable, self-sacrificing, and loving elven kind. It made them believable and made their characters just so cool that and relatable, really, that you wanted to root for them, which is usually something that you don't hear in fantasy stories. We tend to focus more on the humans, but in this case, with the Dragon Prince, I found myself loving the elves just as much as the humans. By giving the elves so much character, it makes the relationship between Callum and Rayla all the more special. We've seen plenty of relationships before between elves and humans in fantasy, but this story is one of the few that gets close to the epic romance that was Tolkien's very own Beren and Luthien. We get to see just how amazing Rayla really is when you compare her to the others of her kind. She's not just simply cool because she's Rayla, but she's cool because she's Rayla in the rest of what Xadia is. And my heart really went out to her when she learned that she had been made a ghost by her own people, where they magically erase her presence from the village and she cannot interact with anyone. And then learning about her parents from Callum was just precious, and it was one of those great moments that I didn't even know that her character was going to get. It was really great character progression for her. It helped to bring a lot of things full circle, and the interactions between Rayla and Callum and the elves were just honestly perfect. I can't think of any way that I would try to improve on the scenes that I saw. And let's talk about this right here. Let's talk about the event that I don't think any of us saw coming. That surprise kiss when Callum was trying to cheer Rayla up, that was just both enjoyably juvenile and hilarious. That misunderstanding was great. That was something that I was like, holy dang, I've actually seen that before in real life. I felt like I was watching something from school just play out before my eyes. And it works because of how Callum responds in the moment, and then how he goes in for the next kiss in the very next episode. And their teenage lovey-doveyness didn't even get annoying as the show went on, which I actually kind of expected it to, because that's just what happens with teenagers. But wow, it was awesome. And another thing that just makes it awesome was that them becoming a couple didn't magically solve everything. Thank you! Instead, their relationship becomes a necessary tool for tackling their future challenges as the rest of the season progresses. Take note, all you writers out there, this is good relationship writing, and it makes a good argument for why relationships shouldn't always be endgame for the story. Actually, just watching the season made me rethink one of the storylines from my own book and how the narrative could benefit by certain characters getting together sooner than expected. But just like with Callum and Rayla, there has to be proper setup and well-timed payoff. It's a tricky combination, but it is oh so worth it, as the Dragon Prince shows. But let's move from the events of the East and go back westward to the human lands. The insane politicking that Ezran finds himself facing was so well done. The young prince is put into an incredibly difficult situation, having to pass judgment on people that he genuinely trusts and likes, and ruling a kingdom where he is so young and dealing with the threat of violence and war, all because he refuses to budge from being a pacifist. At least at the beginning. Things kind of change a little bit for Ezra. He gets to grow up as he gets to see what he's really going up against. But in the moment, Ezran does not cave or break. His youth and the adventures that he had in the last 2 seasons make him a believable young king who will not compromise what he believes is right. It was more moving than I expected, and it set up Viren's return in a way that was again very logical and very fitting. And with Ezran's escape and meeting up with his brother, it was just a great reunion that was the perfect payoff for many of the encounters that we had in Season 2, especially with the Red Dragon. And that takes me then to Soren and Claudia, who just really brought the real gut-wrenching drama that really makes the season what it was. I was not expecting it, as we get to see Claudia doing all the wrong things for the people that she loves and for the future that she wants for humanity. And then Soren giving up everything to confront the truth about his father and to be the hero that he's always wanted to be, even if that means facing off against his entire family. His redemption arc has been incredible. And Viren's own storyline was utterly delightful. His reliance on Aragos was supremely troubling in so many ways, but it all makes sense based off of the lies and the fears that have been brought into this strange relationship. Once a misguided but earnest mage and best friend to the king, Viren's desires to help King Harrow have led him down a path to now desire absolute power. No matter how you see him, Whether he just be a pure villain or a fallen hero, it is clear that Viren is someone who has fallen from grace, and his descent into madness is honestly chilling. And his interactions with Bug Pal Erebos were amazing, both for their humor and for providing the dark undertones of the series. Viren's own flashback to Harrow slaying the Dragon King was just really well done. The emotions, the action, the dialogue, all of it was on point. I was literally on the edge of my seat watching this. I did not realize I was that much into the show until I nearly fell off my own couch. And the dragons were amazing. Sol Regum was the perfect embittered ex-king. You know we're going to get more of him because his vindictiveness knows no bounds when he is willing to kill the frickin' Dragon Prince! And after that humiliating defeat of being locked into this crazy stone arch, we definitely have not seen the end of him or any of the dragons who might side with him. Not by a long shot. And the posters for the show, the early ones, make me think that we are not yet done with the Sun Dragons as their own race with it. Because, man, you know, like, I thought the entire time that that might be the Dragon Queen that we were looking at right there, but it's not, and it's a pretty young Sun Dragon, so who else are we going to meet? Could this be one of the children from Sol Regum? Is this a dragon who will not side with the Dragon Prince? So many questions! And with the introduction to the Queen and a lot of other dragons now in the mix, we are guaranteed to get a lot more of the dragon side of Zadian politics and machinations, and that makes me really excited. And just to kind of give a brief overview of the season as a whole, there's just so many things that we were getting. We got the reveal about Rayla's parents. We had an epic final battle with back and forth moments that made you think that, oh my gosh, they're going to win. Oh my gosh, they're now going to lose. Oh my gosh, they're going to win. What the heck is happening? And Viren's revival at the end was unexpected and just, holy cow, that was horrific right there. Writers, again, take note. This season shows you how to deliver payoff. The first two seasons of the show definitely went at a slower pace, but the third season delivered on everything that they had built up to. It's hard to locate loose threads when you look at season 3 because so many things became relevant and things that are still secret continue to be teased out, promising us even more when we get to the show's future installments. This is how you wrap up a grandiose arc, but leave more to work with in the future. At the beginning of this video, I jokingly compared it to a Game of Thrones, but in all seriousness, one of the biggest problems with the last season of Game of Thrones was that the payoff that we got was very minimalistic, and it just kind of felt as though they were trying to steamroll their way into the happiest ending possible with only killing off certain people or murdering certain people in certain ways that they hoped would give us full closure. But that's really not what we got. And the Dragon Prince takes great care to avoid that by focusing in on really all of the characters and giving them special specific moments. For crying out loud, even the Baker returns for a pretty epic moment in the final battle. And that really wasn't needed, but it was just fun to see. And that's something that the show did really well. It gave us the fun moments, but it definitely took its time to take care of the very important moments as well, and bringing together multiple arcs all into this one final battle. Now, I cannot wrap up this video without doing first a little bit of speculation and giving a little bit more writing advice that I have gleaned from the show, just because, I mean, I love it so much, and I just can't help myself. First of all, when Viren is brought back to life by Claudia, his appearance is totally normal, rather than the haunted version that we keep seeing of him. And I think that this means that Viren will have a chance to see with new eyes what the cost of dark magic is. Despite the clear evidence that he will probably die before the end of the show, I think that Season 3's ending sets up a potential redemption moment for Viren, seeing how his thirst for power has twisted his personage, and how it's now corrupting his daughter Claudia, and everything that he once held dear is now getting ripped away from him. And with Erebos getting a new body, he is no longer in charge. Viren will now probably find himself at the whims of the elf, that he thought that he was once in control of. And Viren will have a very interesting road ahead of him as the show progresses. Also, I don't think that Ehasz will be entirely free of the mirror. I think his new body, the body that's being formed by his weird caterpillar thing, will become a puppet just like the bug was. And that will, though, allow him to interact more with the world around him. As we've seen, he's either had to use Viren or he's had to possess another elf in order to really do what he's wanted to do. But now that he's been able to create a cocoon and allow for this bug to form into a whole new body, it's very likely that this body is really just once again another puppet, that the true Ehasz is still locked behind a mirror and is going to try to find a way out. And this new body is going to help him do a whole lot of things. I am certain that Ehasz has a long list of elves and dragons that he wants to get rid of before he is done with conquering Xadia. And as far as another prediction goes, I think that our dynamic trio of Callum, Rayla, and Ezran will now be concentrating on the consequences of their victory. Sure, they have won an amazing battle in stopping Viren and the humans from the west, but not all of the elves will buy into what has just happened. And as we saw with Sol Regum, not all the dragons will be on their side either. I personally think that before Ehasz reveals himself to the rest of the world, another dragon contender for the throne will arise. The heroes will have to help Zim and protect him against what comes next, which I think means that Callum and Rayla will join the Dragon Guard, and I expect to hear Zim speak verbally by the end of the second arc, mirroring Ezran's own ascension to the throne. Now, for some quick writing advice that can be gleaned from the show, pay attention to what you put into motion within your story. Many writers have a bad tendency to write something interesting within their plot at the very beginning, but then just leave it hanging as the overall story gets larger and underway. They are either left to fly in the breeze, these random plot threads, or they are blandly resolved off screen. Don't do that. Never just resolve a problem off screen. That cheapens the experience. Keep track of what you write. I know it's difficult, but it is so worth it. Keep track of all the major arcs that you set into motion and address them properly at the right time so they can be resolved in a way that is fulfilling to both yourself, the readers, and the overall narrative. Another important bit of writing advice is to give different shades to all of your main characters. Villains can have redeeming qualities and heroes can make devastating mistakes. They all have their own weaknesses and strengths. One of the best things to bring this all out is through their interactions with each other and how they speak. It takes work, but you want to move away from scripted dialogue and cultivate instead organic, believable interactions. Yes, this is going to take some work to get to that level, but it totally pays off. You can tell when characters are acting like themselves and having a believable conversation. This is one of the things that I've seen a lot of people critique other writers on, is when they say, yeah, I'm getting a lot of great information and I love what the characters are doing, but their dialogue just sounds fake, like it's just trying to push the plot along. Give your characters moments to have interactions that are not necessarily plot-centric, but are character-centric. This will be a really great exercise to help bring out their individual voices and their personalities. So with that being said, I hope that you enjoyed this happier rant. It's not very often that I go on a tirade of praise, but when I think that a story deserves it, I am more than happy to oblige. The wait for the next season is going to feel so long, but if this season is any indicator of what comes next, it will be worth it. And while I wait, I hope that you stop by our podcast, Camille's Harem, where you can hear us fully dive into the art of writing and also laugh with us as we do epic readings of terrible fanfictions. You can reach out to us over at our subreddit, where we encourage all kinds of discussions, and we also have materials for writers over at our Pinterest page. Links for all of those sites are in the description. And if you like the idea of reading terrible fanfictions and you want to help us out with that, please send us links to those bad gems via our Twitter at Camille's Harem. And until the next video, y'all, tschüss.